This video and all of its contents, including any opinions expressed by the narrator, are strictly for entertainment purposes only and is not intended in any way as a substitute for professional services and consultation from a licensed therapist, doctor, attorney, or other licensed professional service provider. Each person must make their own life decisions, and those decisions are theirs. Welcome back to Find Your Alpha. I'm back at you this week with another great story, and you can see the title on your screen. Fiancé monkey branched to a rich guy, then tried coming back. And she's saying, "Please take me back." Now let's get into this story and find out what it's all about. And this is his original post. He says, "I'm looking for some advice here on how best to handle a situation that I thought I was done with. I'm a 26-year-old male and my ex-girlfriend is 23. For the purpose of this, I'll call her Kim and me Len. We live in the Las Vegas area. Uh-oh, already there's going to be problems. I'm a native of Clark County, while Kim moved here a few months before her 21st birthday to start a new life." Now that's a big red flag. "I've got a bachelor's and work in IT." Another IT guy? What is it with guys who work in IT and the problems they have with women? This is like the second or third story I've done like this. "My ex worked as a waitress and then as assistant maitre d' at a nice restaurant located inside an off-strip casino. I met her there while she was waiting tables. At the time, I was working an on-site project on that side of town. As fate would have it, I stopped in one night after work and she waited on me. She was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, and the sound of her voice gave me goosebumps. So much so that on my next visit to the restaurant, I asked for her number. She gave it to me and our relationship grew from there. We talked on the phone a couple times, then went on our first date the following week. We both like hiking, so we drove up to Mount Charleston to escape the valley heat. The date went flawlessly, and we unofficially became a couple that day. From there, we started spending nearly every night together, even though we lived almost 40 minutes apart. Since she didn't like to drive in traffic, I normally was the one who'd make the trip to her place 4 to 5 nights per week, while she would come my way 1 to 2 nights per week. That is a big mistake because right out of the gate, you're showing to her she is the center of your world. She's probably looking at you and saying, "Man, this guy is devoting his whole life to me now. Doesn't he have anything else going on?" Back then, she was living with 2 other women in a 3-bedroom apartment that was far above what they could afford. That's a big red flag. And I think the last story or the one before that, it was the same kind of situation. One of her roommates was a coworker at the restaurant while the other worked in a salon. Oh boy, this sounds like a crazy household. After dating exclusively for about 7 months, their lease came up for renewal, and I decided to move Kim in with me. Another big mistake. After 7 months, he's moving her in? What is he thinking about? This upset her roommates, who were forced to split up and move elsewhere. Shortly after moving in with me, Kim started complaining about how stressed out she was every day from having to make the long drive across town and back to get to her job. I sympathized with her, and when my lease expired a few months later, we moved into an apartment complex close to her job. This, however, increased my commute time from less than 10 minutes to over 35 minutes. But I didn't mind. Again, this is another big mistake. You can see this guy is Mr. Nice Guy, Mr. Simp. He's doing everything to please this woman. What is she doing to please you? While I didn't relish the drive, the move was worth it, as Kim rewarded my sacrifice with affection. Okay, so that's all it takes is a little of the good stuff and you'll basically do anything. This guy is totally pee-whipped. Overall, we got along great in those early months. Actually, we got along great our entire relationship until it abruptly ended. The only disagreements we ever had were over money. I tend to be a conservative saver type. while Kim is definitely a spender, a careless spender. As a result, she had nearly $17,000 in credit card debt when she moved in with me. That is a major red flag. Anyone who's spending money they don't have, unless they're totally destitute, that person is someone you probably want to avoid because they can't control their impulses. As for our expenses, we worked it out where I paid 75% of the living expenses and she paid the rest. However, instead of putting her share towards our living expenses, I diverted most of it to pay down her credit cards. After 13 months, I had them paid in full. While Kim didn't like being frugal, she liked being debt free. Well, of course, because you're not requiring her to pay anything. You're basically taking the money she's paying you and paying off her credit cards. So this is just a win-win situation for her. It's a lose-lose situation for you. Even so, it was a constant battle to get her to curtail her spending. She always had to have the latest clothing, shoes, and purses, and hated wearing the same thing more than a few times. She said being a maitre d' at an upscale establishment, her customers and casino management expected her to look good. I told her she was beautiful and didn't need new clothes to look good. They're not going to expect her to be wearing new clothes every day, making that kind of money. Come on. Her spending didn't stop at clothes, though. She had the same bad habits when it came to eating out and drinking. Prior to us getting together, she was used to blowing her entire paycheck on clothes, eating out, and drinking expensive alcohol at the clubs, including bottle service. You know how much bottle service is in Las Vegas? Again, she attributed her penchant for fine food and drink as an expectation of her job. There's no way the company she worked with would expect her to go out and eat expensive meals all the time because they're not paying her enough to do that. Looking back now, I see this should have been a major concern for me, but I overlooked it because I was crazy in love with her. Outside of the disagreements over money, the rest of our relationship was terrific. I really thought I had found the special one. So I asked him to marry me on our 18-month anniversary. Oh boy, you know this is going to turn out bad. Without hesitating, she gave me an enthusiastic yes. Well, of course she did because she found her ATM machine. I was overjoyed. Our plan was to live together for another year and get married sometime the following summer. After I proposed, we made a trip back to her home state so I could meet her family. Everything went great and her parents and I hit it off really well. Since my parents lived nearby, Kim got to spend a lot of time with them. They liked her but cautioned us about rushing things. Well, you should have listened to your parents because they were absolutely right. Everything was going great, and there were no signs of problems right up until just a few days before our relationship ended. It was then I saw a side of her I'd never seen before. It was mid-morning on a Saturday, and we were going to brunch at one of her favorite spots. Well, of course, you're not going to go to your favorite spot because you're doing everything to please her. I noticed in the car she was silent and not really engaging. I asked her what was wrong, and she exploded on me. She said everything with us is the same old crap. I was stunned and asked her what she meant by that. She said if I had to ask, then I was clueless. I asked her to talk to me, but she just clammed up and became very huffy. I asked her if she wanted to go to a different place, and she told me to just drive. At the restaurant, she barely spoke 5 words to me and just picked at her food, acting disgusted with me. Okay, so here's what you do if you ever run into this situation with a woman. You say, listen, you better tell me right now what's wrong with you, and if not, I'm getting up and I'm leaving you where you are and I'm heading out the door, and guess what? You can find another place to live. So you better start talking now, or you can start packing now. That's how you handle that situation. After brunch, we went out to Red Rocks and did a short hike, but it was really hot, so we didn't stay long. While out there, she seemed to get back to her normal self. When we got in the car to drive home, she kissed me and apologized, blaming her outburst on it being that time of month. We had plans to go out that night, but instead she said she wanted to stay home, watch movies, and, you know. We did the same thing Sunday, and she seemed overly affectionate to make up for her outburst on Saturday. Well, that's because she's love bombing you. Looking back now, this was highly unusual behavior, but I think I was enjoying the affection so much I didn't realize it. Of course you didn't, because you're pee-whipped. On Monday, we drank coffee, talked, and ate breakfast together. When it was time for me to leave, we kissed, I left, and it seemed just like another ordinary weekday. At around 10:40, she texted me and said she was leaving for work. I told her to have fun, and I look forward to seeing her tonight. She texted back a heart emoji and said, I love you. When I got off work, I picked up a bouquet of her favorite flowers, along with a couple of her favorite cookies from Crumble, and headed home. Now, I looked up this Crumble, and it's some kind of gourmet cookie shop. I wanted to show her my appreciation for the great weekend we shared. Well, this is another lesson here, because you don't reward bad behavior. When I got to our place, I opened the door with flowers and cookies in hand. To my surprise, the place was dark and Kim wasn't there. My eyes were immediately drawn to a legal pad sitting propped up against one of the pillars on our kitchen bar. It had a long handwritten note on it from Kim. She obviously put it there so I'd see it as soon as I entered the apartment. At first I thought it was a note explaining she had to work late or had to run an errand or something, but as I read on, I quickly discovered that it was a farewell letter. I had another story like this where a woman left a farewell letter, I think almost in the same place. I'm not going to write out everything she said, but in summary, it said she had moved out of state to follow her dream. She went on to say that I shouldn't try contacting her, as doing so would make things difficult for both of us. This is the classic behavior of a woman who's monkey branched. Once she gets to that new guy, she wants to completely forget about her old guy. To her, you're trash. You don't exist. She just wants you to go away. She apologized for leaving, wished me well, and ended the letter with just her signature. No, I love you. No, thank you for being such a great guy. Nothing. Just her first name. I felt like my insides had just been torn out of me. I immediately tried calling her, but the call wouldn't complete. I then texted but kept getting a return reply stating the message did not go through. I quickly realized she had me blocked. I then tried calling her former roommate and coworker at the restaurant, who I'll call Barb. To my surprise, Barb had me blocked too. So I then called her other roommate who works at a salon. I'll call her Cindy. Cindy answered, and I asked if she had seen or heard from Kim. She said no and added she really hadn't kept in touch with either Kim or Barb since she moved out. She asked why I called her, and I ended up telling her the full story. She listened and told me while she was shocked, she wasn't totally surprised. I asked her why, and she said after living with Kim for a short time, she could tell she was a narcissist. Hearing this was a surprise at first, but the more I thought about it, she was right. Kim had all the characteristics of a selfish narcissist. Cindy then told me she was going to casually call Barb to catch up and see if she says anything about Kim. I told Cindy that Barb also had me blocked. Cindy again said this didn't surprise her, as those two were evil twins who were cut from the same cloth. While I was still upset about everything, speaking with Cindy temporarily lifted my spirits. I didn't hear back from Cindy that night, but the following morning I got a call from her around 11:30. She apologized for calling me during work hours, but said she thought I'd want to know what she discovered. She asked me if I was in a private place and sitting down. I told her no, but said I'd walk out to my car and call her back, as I was about to head out to pick up some lunch anyway. I got out to my car and called Cindy. She told me she just got off the phone with Barb and had all the details of Kim's whereabouts. I told her I really appreciated this, but wanted to make sure I didn't ruin her relationship with Barb. Classic nice guy behavior. He's looking out for everyone else except for himself. Cindy said she has no relationship with Barb other than being an ex-roommate. She also told me not to do any favors for Barb, as she was a key accomplice in this whole thing. Cindy then proceeded to disclose the details. She said Barb told her a tech executive stayed at the casino the week prior to Kim leaving me. Barb said he arrived on Monday and was immediately attracted to Kim and started relentlessly pursuing her. The following day, Kim agreed to meet him for a drink after work. According to Barb, by Wednesday, they had started a physical relationship. According to Barb, they got together again on Thursday and Friday afternoon before she came home to me. He wanted her to move to the Bay Area with him when he left the following Monday. I guess Kim initially said she couldn't, but the guy gave her an ultimatum saying if she didn't, he'd consider their relationship over. Barb said she encouraged Kim to go for it, and if things didn't work out, she could always come back to me. So Barb is telling her, hey girl, you go for it. This guy is loaded. And if things don't work out, you can always fall back to your nice guy Len. He'll be there for you. Apparently, Kim spent the weekend deciding, and that's why she was so pissy with me that Saturday. According to Barb, Kim said it was the hardest decision of her life, but she eventually decided to run off with the guy. Barb said Kim feels terrible about leaving me. No, she doesn't. And truly loves me. No, she doesn't. But said it was an opportunity she just couldn't pass up. At first, I couldn't believe what I was hearing and felt awful. My voice started cracking and I almost cried while on the phone with Cindy, but thankfully I didn't. That's because I realized right then what a disgusting POS Kim truly was. And instead of being sad, I got really, really angry. Good, you should have done that before. I realized she used me as a temporary stepping stone to eventually pivot to something better if it came along. This is a ploy that a lot of modern women use. They will latch on to a guy who's kind of a sure thing, a good provider, somebody has a shoulder to cry on, that nice guy, but they're constantly scanning the horizon for something better. And as soon as they find it, boom, they're leaving that nice guy and they're on that train with that new guy. Cindy expressed concern for my well-being and asked if I was all right. I told her no, but said I will be and thanked her for the information. She told me she'd call me and let me know if she hears anything else and said that I could call her any time if I wanted to talk. I again thanked her and told her I owe her one. She told me she was going to take me up on that. We laughed and then ended the call. I went back to work and that evening drove over to my parents' house and told them all about what happened. They were surprised and they too were really concerned for me. Mom said what Kim did is a Dear John breakup. I didn't know what that meant, so she explained it's a term they used in the old days to describe when a woman would break up with a man via a letter instead of doing it face to face. She called it the coward's way out. My dad told me, son, I know you're upset now, but in a few weeks you're going to look back on this and see just how lucky you were getting rid of her. I told him, thanks, Dad. I already feel that way. Mom then chimed in and told me there was just something about Kim she didn't like, but she didn't want to make a big deal about it since I was so in love. Well, Mom, you should have spoke up. I have to admit the next few weeks were really tough. I went between feeling angry and used to feeling lost and lonely and missing Kim terribly. During this time, I got rid of any reminders of her at the apartment and spent my evenings either hiking, swimming in the pool, or working out in the gym at our complex. Well, that's good. I was just starting to feel good and put this whole disaster behind me when, out of nowhere, I got a call from Kim. I saw her number pop up and didn't answer. At first, I didn't think she left a message as I didn't get a notification. Then 20 minutes later, one popped up on my phone. My guess is she probably erased and re-recorded the message multiple times before leaving it. I listened to the message and she said, "Hi, it's Kim. I was just calling to check in with you. I hope you're doing well. Love you." He says, "What the blank?" She leaves me without a trace for another guy, and then 5 weeks later she calls me like nothing happened. Not only is she a narcissist and POS, I realize she is likely a psychopath as well. I, of course, didn't call or text her and just ignored the message. Good job. That's what you should have done. The following evening, I got another call from her, which I sent to voicemail. She left a message explaining that she's now back in town and realized what a terrible mistake she had made. She said she loves me and would do anything to get back together with me. She begged me to just meet with her and hear her out, promising if I did, she'd never again ask me for anything again. Don't believe that at all. I thought about calling her and hearing what she had to say, but then decided once again to just ignore her. The following day, she left me another message, this time crying and begging me to just talk to her, saying she made a terrible mistake and wanted to at least see me in person to apologize and explain. Explain what? I thought. There's nothing to explain. She left me for another guy who she thought was a step above, but things didn't work out like she thought and now wants to fall back to me. Bingo, that's exactly what she's doing. No way, honey, he says. I will not be a fallback for any woman, no matter how hot she is. And that's good advice for every guy out there. Never be a fallback for a woman. The following day at work, I got a call at my desk from a number I didn't recognize. If you didn't recognize it, you should have just let it go to your voicemail. I answered it and it was Barb, Kim's former roommate who worked at the restaurant. She asked me not to hang up and to hear her out. I said okay, but told her I only had a few minutes, so she needed to talk fast. She told me that Kim was back in town and was living with her and another roommate temporarily. She said Kim was very sorry for what she did and realized when she was away that I was the love of her life and she will do anything I ask if I would take her back. Barb went on to say that she was partially responsible for Kim leaving as she encouraged her to do it. Barb said she told Kim if she didn't go for it, she'd regret it for the rest of her life. Barb said Kim now realizes money isn't everything and that love and family were most important. Now listen to this, guys. She says Kim loves me and wants to start a family with me. Can you believe that? I mean, this woman has the nerve to say that. I asked Barb if she was done as I had to go. She said yes, but then asked if I'd meet with Kim. I said no, and she kept trying to convince me why I should just hear her out, if for nothing else but closure for us. You're not going to get closure. I told her I had to go, but I'd think about it. You don't tell her you're going to think about it. You tell her, no, I told you no once, and that's it. Goodbye, hang up on her, and don't waste your time. She thanked me and we ended the call. So that's where things are now and why I've come here for advice. I'd like to know what the community thinks I should do in this case. Should I meet with Kim to hear her out and at least give her a chance to explain herself and get closure? No. Or would you continue being no contact and let her wallow in misery? Yes. I'm really torn at this point. Let me make one thing absolutely clear, though. There's absolutely no way I would ever get back into a relationship of any kind with Kim. Not even to hook up or even as friends. Well, that's good. Let me know your thoughts, Len. So that's the end of his original post. And now we're going to take a look at a few responses he got from the community. But before we do, I want to remind you, if you like what you've heard so far, hit that like button. That'll make sure that this video gets seen by people all over the planet. Now, let's take a look at some of those responses. The first one's from a guy. He says, don't even think about meeting with her, calling her, or even sending her a text. She doesn't deserve it. She's evil and treated you like trash, and you still had to go to the internet and ask whether you should give her closure. I could tell immediately before I finished reading your story that you are just another nice guy who got suckered in by a pretty woman. Tell her to blank off. I have to agree with this guy. Next, this one's from a woman. She says, my reply is going to be a little controversial, and I'm probably going to get hate for it, but I think it might be in your best interest to meet with her. Back when I was 19, I did something like your girlfriend, except in my case, the guy wasn't rich. He probably was some bad boy, I'm guessing. I found out 6 months later I made a huge mistake, and lucky for me, my boyfriend took me back. We're married now with 3 kids, so things worked out for us. Next, we got another response from a guy. He says, I'm not a doctor, but I work in medicine and know from my studies that the human brain doesn't fully develop until age 25. Furthermore, there have been multiple studies showing most irrational behavior occurs with adults under 25, with women being most vulnerable. For this reason, I'd meet with her to assess the situation and take it from there. No, don't do that. I've seen this excuse brought up in multiple stories that I've read that, oh, you got to really discount anything someone's done when they were under 25 because their brain's not fully developed. I don't care if their brain's developed or not. If somebody cheats on you, you drop them like a bad habit. And finally, we've got another response from a woman. She says, my advice to you is to just ignore her. You don't owe her anything after what she did. It's clear she tried monkey branching and failed and now wants to come back to her safe bet. My son went through this right after getting his degree. His girlfriend at the time played with his mind like a yo-yo until one day he got sick of it and dumped her. Thank God he did, as he's married now to a good girl and has a beautiful family. Well, good for him. So those are all the responses. And now we're going to go to the final update so we can see how things turned out for this guy. And this final update was posted 9 weeks following the original post. I want to first thank everyone for the feedback. The overwhelming majority of you suggested that I stay no contact, and that's what I've done. Good job, guy. That's what you should have done. In the days following my original post, Kim tried calling and texting me multiple times and also came to my apartment twice trying to speak with me. I ignored her calls and didn't let her in when she came to my place. I wanted nothing more than to open the door and embrace her when she was here, and I'll admit I cried like a little bee watching her turn around and leave, but I didn't buckle. You may be asking why I didn't block her. It's a power thing with me. I don't want her to think she means so much to me that I had to block her. Well, let me tell you something. I would have blocked her on all platforms. I want her to think she doesn't matter at all to me, and I think she's finally realizing that after nearly 2 months of me ignoring her. Another thing that probably convinced her that I'm done with her is that I'm now dating Cindy, her old roommate. I knew that was going to happen just based on how they were conversing with each other and the little innuendos that, they dropped to each other there on that one telephone conversation. I had a feeling this was going to happen. I know many of you expressed that waitresses, bartenders, and cosmetologists are all high cheating risk professions, but Cindy seems different. Plus, I don't plan on rushing into another serious relationship anytime soon. And based on my experience with Kim, I don't ever see myself getting married. Now, you might ask, how did Kim find out about Cindy and I? Cindy called Barb again to catch up and told her, slyly dropping that information during their last conversation. So Cindy's rubbing it in a little bit on this Kim, which I don't blame her. She deserves it. Cindy said Barb went radio silent and didn't say much after that. The following day, Barb sent Cindy a text berating her about being disloyal to Kim. Cindy texted Barb back and said Kim should have thought about that before she was disloyal and disrespectful to me. Well, good for Cindy. So that's where things stand as of today. I'm done with Kim. I'm dating Cindy. And most of all, I'm focusing on my own physical and mental health. Thanks all. Len. So that's the end of his story. And obviously, this guy made a ton of mistakes right out of the gate that many nice guys make. And a lot of us, let's face it and let's admit it, most of us have made some of these mistakes during our early years. But I have to hand it to him. Once she ran off with that guy, he handled things very well. He cut her off, he went no contact, and he ended the relationship. He quickly came to the realization that she was trash and he needed to get her out of his life, and he did that. So I think in the end, he handled the situation very well. Now, for the morals of the story, be careful of those who have moved to a new city to start a new life, especially to places like Las Vegas, Miami, LA, or New York. Second point, always do your due diligence before rushing into a committed relationship. You want to find out this woman's history. This guy obviously didn't do that. He was so smitten with her looks, and he even said, just her voice gave me goosebumps. He was so happy to have this beautiful woman giving him her body that he didn't care about anything else. That's a big mistake, guys. Next, pay attention to the behaviors of her friends, as they will eventually rub off on her. Now, this woman had one friend, this Barb, who obviously was one of these progressive modern women. She told her, go for this new guy. Don't worry about your nice guy boyfriend. Yeah, he's a nice guy and everything, but if things don't work out with this rich guy, you can always come back to him. And then on the other side, she had this roommate, Cindy, who seemed to be much more of a traditional, level-headed woman. And it's obvious in this case, her roommate, Barb, is the one who rubbed off on her. Next, always go no contact and stay no contact with cheaters. Nothing good will come from talking, and you'll never get closure. And finally, a point that I make in all of these cheating stories, if you've been cheated on, end the relationship and move forward with the next phase of your life. So those are my thoughts, and now I want to hear from you. What did you think of this story? How do you think this guy handled it? Would you have done something different? Has something like this happened to you? Tell us about it in the comments. Also, be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and please subscribe to this channel, and I will talk to you